Mavarach. Today we are learning the Amudim for Shabbos and Maseches Shabbos, the 27th and 28th of Chodesh Shvat. And Be'ez Hashem, we are going to take a look at both sides of Daf Kuf Vav, both Amud Aleph and Amud Beis, with a lot of practical halacha questions, halacha l'maisa. We are starting 5 lines from the top of the page on Daf Kuf Vav Amud Aleph, where the Gemara had been discussing the halachas of all the 8 things that we had learned from the Brisa, and then the Gemara is going to discuss some of the halachas of kos pogum, of making kiddush or havdalah or any other brachas on a kos pogum, on something that has been tasted from already. It says the Gemara as follows: Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi kapid a chatzva pegima. Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi was makbid not to make kiddush on a defective or a pitcher, a jug of wine that was pogum, meaning that somebody had already drunk from. Rav Idi bar Shesha kapid akasa pegima. Rav Idi bar Shesha was makbid only on a kos pogum, if somebody had drunk from the cup. And Mar bar Rav Ashi kapid afilu a chavisa pegimsa. And Mar bar Rav Ashi was makbid not to make kiddush havdalah or any brachas on that required a kos, even if the barrel was pogum. The Rashbam points out here that what do you mean a barrel that was pogum? So that means a small barrel. But obviously, if somebody had drunk from a large barrel, that's not going to be pogum the entirety of the barrel. The Rashbam also writes here that that all of these dinim are only milechatchila. But if you only have that amount of wine, and this is important, and you still have the shear, you still have the requisite shear, but you don't have enough extra wine to top up the cup, top up the barrel, top up the pitcher. So then the hakpara is only lechatchila, and the Tosfos here quotes that Ro Rashbam nismach alav b'shas adchak. The Tosfos disagrees with the Rashbam, but it says the Tosfos halacha l'maisa. Says the Tosfos, if you only have a kos pogum, but at least you have a shear, you still make kiddush on that. That's all that you have. You use it anyway. And then the Gemara quotes a brisa as follows, and this is going to sound like a very strange brisa, and Rashi is already sensitive to the strangeness of the brisa. The brisa tells us like this: Tana Rabbanan, the Rabbanan taught in our brisa, Zachar Yom HaShabbos leKodshai, that you have to remember Shabbos to make it Kaddish. Okay, good. We know that pasuk. That's a pasuk from the Asir side. This is in Parashat Shmos. What's the limud? Zachreu al hayayin, and that means that you have to remember Shabbos over a cup of wine. Now, there's a big machlokes in the Rishonim whether this is a din deraisa or a din midrabanan, meaning the Torah says you have to make Shabbos special, and the Rabbanan now said that the way to fulfill that on a level of deraisa is al hayayin, or no, the Rabbanan said you upgraded midrabanan al hayayin, but just by mentioning Shabbos you already are going to fulfill the mitzvah of kiddush midaraisa. Nevertheless, that's not what this brisa is discussing. This is the strangeness of the brisa. Says the brisa, "Eini ela bayom." I only know that you have to make kiddush in the daytime. Balayla, minayin. How do you know that you have to make kiddush at night? Rashi points out, like having parach adrabah. Later, in a couple of lines, we're going to say the opposite. Surely, it makes more sense to make kiddush at night. Nevertheless, how do we know that you have to make kiddush at night? Talmud Loimar, the pasuk says, "Zachar Yom Shabbos leKodshai." Remember, Shabbos leKodshai means when it is, as Rashi points out, from the time, the point in time that the day becomes Kaddish, that is when you have to already be making Kiddush. But it seems to be that the simple understanding is that obviously you have to make Kiddush in the daytime. Says the Gemara, Balayla minayin, what do you mean? How do you know at night? Adarabba, on the contrary, Ikar Kedusha Balaylahu Kaddish. The primary Kiddush is said at night. That's where we know you make 2 brachas. You're going to say Mekadosh Shabbos there as well as Bar Pergafen. When you say Kiddush, you should say it at the beginning of the point in time of Kedusha. Visu, and furthermore, Balayla minayin, what do you mean? How do you know that you have to say it at night? Tamalov, the pasuk says, Zachar as Yom. Remember Shabbos day, meaning from the beginning of Shabbos day. Says the Gemara, Tani mihadar alayla, the Tana is going to seek a proof to know that you need to make Kiddush at night. V'kanasiv lekra di imama. Then he's going to say the Zachar Yom HaShabbos to somewhere that says daytime. The whole limud seems weird, says the Gemara. Rather, says the Gemara, how do you learn this brisa? This is what the brisa means. Zachar Yom HaShabbos leKodshai. make Shabbos, remember Shabbos to make it special, to sanctify it, to make it holy. Which means remember it on a cup of wine when it comes in. I only know that it needs to be said at nighttime. How do I know that it needs to be said in the daytime? Talmud Loimar, the pasuk says, Zocher is Yom HaShabbos. Remember the Yom HaShabbos, and that's going to be our remez that Yom HaShabbos also needs to have Kiddush. And that's how the Gemara reinterprets the Brisa, that the language that we have in the Brisa seems to be a little bit muddled up, and this is the correct way to learn the Brisa. Means we already know about nighttime because Zocher alayayin b'knisa say. How do you know daytime? Because of Zocher Yom HaShabbos, Yom HaShabbos tells me in the daytime as well. Okay. Now the Gemara asks the question. Good. At night we know that you make two brachas. You make Bari Paragafen and then Mekadosh Shabbos. What do you do in the daytime? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, says Rabbi Yehuda, the only thing that you need is Bari Pri Hagafen. Nothing else. No fancy introductions, no Mekadosh Shabbos, no additional psukim. You don't need to say any of that. You don't need to say any of those things. And Meikar Adin, that is how we pass in halacha l'maisa. Meaning, if a person doesn't know how to say Kiddush, but knows how to make the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, Bari Pri Hagafen, that is all that you need, halacha l'maisa, in order to be Yotze Kiddush on Shabbos morning. And on Yom Tov, we add additional psukim in order to beef it up a little bit, as we will see in a moment. Rav Ashi ikla l'Mechayzer. Rav Ashi came to Mechayzer. Mechayzer was one of the big cities of Bavel. They said to him, Kiddush Rabbah. Can you please, during the daytime, when we mechabed him, to make Kiddush Rabbah in the daytime? Meaning, they said, make Kiddush Shabbos morning. They called it Kiddush Rabbah. Literally means the big Kiddush. Havule, and then they handed him a cup of wine. So now he didn't know. Savar, my new Kiddush Rabbah. He was wondering, what exactly is Kiddush Rabbah? What does the saying we have to make Kiddush Rabbah? Please, Rav Ashi, he's the God Ladar. Will you make Kiddush Rabbah? So he didn't know, he had never heard of Kiddush Rabbah. Amar, he says, Michti. Let's see. Kala brachas kulam bari pri hagafen, Amri Bereisha. Everybody knows that with all of the brachas, what do you do first? You make a bari pri hagafen. So I'll start with that. Amar bari pri hagafen. So he said bari pri hagafen, ve'agid bei. And he drew it out and then paused. He's looking around. What are people going to do? And he sees an old man that's picked up his Kiddush cup, meaning, so somebody that clearly knew what the minhag was, picked up his cup and started to drink. He said about himself, wise people have eyes in their head. Meaning, he says, I didn't know what exactly they meant by Kiddush Rabbah, but I was looking around, and as he's dragging it out, he sees just before the Amen that there's a guy that picks up his cup ready to drink it. He goes, I know that Kiddush Rabbah here means not that they are adding anything more to Kiddush afterwards, and not that they add additional brachas, but Kiddush Rabbah means that they're making Kiddush in the daytime. That's all that it means. Amri, they said, Amri b'nei Rabbi Chir, the sons of Rabbi Chir said as follows. Before we get there, so why exactly do we say Kiddush Rabbah? What's the svara to call it Kiddush Rabbah? So Kiddush Rabbah is seems to be a euphemism. Kiddush Rabbah means a nice way of calling it daytime Kiddush without being denigrating. It happens to be that the Ramban al Torah quotes from the Sefer Hakana, Hakana, Mahalach al Pi Kabbalah, that Kiddush Rabbah is during the daytime of Shabbos. Shabbos has been upgraded more so. He explains al Pi Kabbalah, and that's why you have the lashon of the Arizal. In the brachas of Shabbos on Friday night, you say ba, and on Shabbos day you say boy, and Shabbos afternoon you say bum, which is the highest madriga of Shabbos. That Shabbos is getting bigger. Kiddush Rabbah means Shabbos is now greater on Shabbos morning, and therefore it's called Kiddush Rabbah because Shabbos is greater, even though the Kiddush is not greater. The Shabbos has been upgraded in the daytime. Okay, the sons of Rabbi Chia asked the following question: anybody that hasn't made Havdalah on Matzah Shabbos, what does he do? He goes and he makes Havdalah the whole week, and we had seen this previously. Va'ad kama, how much is the whole week? Right? What the whole week, meaning until next Shabbos? When is the end? Amar Rabbi Zera says Rabbi Zera ad Revi until Wednesday, meaning up to but not including Wednesday, until Tuesday. Wednesday is already the cutoff. Ki had Yosef Rabbi Zera coming to Ravasi, like the situation, meaning how do we know this din? Like Rabbi Zera was once sitting in front of Ravasi. V'amri la, and some say it was Ravasi coming to Rabbi Yochanan. It was Ravasi sitting in front of Rabbi Yochanan. But somehow or other, this story had Ravasi involved. It might go all the way back to Rabbi Yochanan. V'yosef Kamar, and he was sitting there and saying, Le'inyan Gittin, with regards to Gittin. So a husband that makes a condition on the get for his wife, that this will be your get if you do this before Shabbos, or you do this after Shabbos. So what is called before Shabbos and what's called after Shabbos? Says the Gemara, Chad b'Shabta, the first day of the week, Trey, the second day of the week, Utlasa, and the third day of the week, meaning Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Basar Shabta. That's called, if you did this after Shabbos. After Shabbos is called Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Arba v'chamsa umale yaima kami Shabbasa. But Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, that's called before Shabbos. So if you're making an addition, I'll give this to you if you get it done before Shabbos. Before Shabbos means anytime Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you get this done after Shabbos, means Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. That's normative of what we refer to as after Shabbos and before Shabbos. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, says Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, Aval loy al ha'ar. But if you make Havdalah after Matzah Shabbos, you don't say Bari Ma'ar Ha'esh, because like we learned way back on Nun Daled, if you the reason we say Bari Ma'ar Ha'esh on Matzah Shabbos is because that's when fire was created, or at least fire was given to Adam Rishon when he was leaving Gan Eden on Matzah Shabbos, and that's when it is appropriate after 24 hours of not using this gift that Hashem has given us, because we have not made any fires. We then say Bari Ma'ar Ha'esh afterwards. Which is also why on Matzah Yom Kippurim we haven't used fire for 24 hours. Therefore, we say Bari Ma'ar Ha'esh after that 24-hour period. Those are the only times that we don't use fire. On Yom Tov, a person is allowed to make a fire, or at least allowed to transfer a fire. So if you make Havdalah anytime that's not after that period, not on Matzah Shabbos, then you don't say Bari Ma'ar Ha'esh. Amar Rav Bruna, Amar Rav, says Rav Bruna in the name of Rav, turning over to Kuf Vav Amud Beis, Ha'noitel Yadav Lo Yikadesh. And this is a big sugya. Somebody that has already washed their hands should not make kiddush. Meaning, this is the Yakisha question. If you wash Netilas Yadayim, and then you realize, oh, Gevalt, I just washed Netilas Yadayim and I haven't yet made kiddush. This happens sometimes, especially like on a Shabbos morning. So you realize that everybody was in shul, and you everybody made kiddush, whatever the case is. Or started the Suda, or somebody came late and then sees everybody washing, notwithstanding the Kiddush from Suda's question, but they realize, oh, Gevalt, I haven't made Kiddush. So, and they've already washed until Yadayim. So now what do? Says the Gemara Lo Kaddish, don't make Kiddush. Rashi here says, the Kiddusha mafsik bein netilas achila, because Kiddush is going to be an interruption between washing and eating. And it's like a hesach hadas, like you are losing focus from washing your hands, and you would need to wash your hands again after Kiddush, and therefore you have rendered your original bracha to be a bracha she'ein tzricha, bracha levatala, which would be problematic. So the correct thing to do is, and the Rashbam points out, so then what should you do? You should listen to Kiddush from somebody else. Somebody that hasn't yet washed their hands should make Kiddush on your behalf. You say, Amen. You can even have a sip to drink, but the speaking there is going to be a hefsek. Amar lahu Rav Yisrael bar Shmuel bar Marta, says Rav Yisrael bar Shmuel bar Marta, akasi lo nach nafshe de Rav. Rav has not yet died, and shachinu le and nevertheless we have already forgotten his teaching. Meaning, apparently Rav was already very old at this point, and he says Rav hasn't died yet, and we've already forgotten his learning. What a disgrace! What am I talking about? It says Zimin Sigin Have Kamina Kamin Rav. There are many times that I spent Shabbos with Rav. I was in front of Rav. Zimnin de Chaviva Ale Rifta. There were some times that he was hungry. He wanted to eat bread first. Mekadesh Rifta. He would wash and then he would make kiddush on the bread. Zimnin, and sometimes de Chaviva Le Chamra. He wanted to have wine first. Mekadesh Chamra, and he would make kiddush on the Chamra. He would make kiddush on the wine first. Meaning, he held that whichever one you want to eat first, that's the one that you should make Kiddush on. What comes out from this discussion is that clearly saying Kiddush is not a hefsek, it's not a hesach hadas. So it would seem to be, and this would be the Yekish Minhag, that making Kiddush is not going to be a hefsek. Making kiddush is not not going to be a hefsek, and that's why, based on this testimony of Rav Yisrael bar Shmuel bar Marta, making kiddush is not going to be a hefsek. It should be pointed out that Rabbeinu Tam holds that kiddush milechatchila should not be made on bread, meaning it's not a preference. Meaning, Rav, it seems to be the simple reading of the Gemara is that when Rav was really hungry, he would make kiddush on bread first. Rabbeinu Tam holds that is only b'diavad. That would only be b'diavad, and that the whole question is whether or not you have to wash in between. Okay. Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav, says Rav Huna in the name of Rav, Tam Einai Mekadesh. This is a big discussion. What exactly does he mean here? Rav Huna says in the name of Rav that if you have eaten already, you don't make kiddush. You don't make kiddush, meaning it seems to be a knas, that if you ate already, you lose kiddush, you have to say kiddush, the whole full big kiddush tomorrow. Once you've made kiddush already, once you've eaten already, you've already proven that you're not eating for the sake of Shabbos, and therefore you're not allowed to make kiddush anymore. You've lost your kiddush for tonight. You have to say double kiddush tomorrow. Ba'amine Rav Chana bar Chinra me Rav Huna. Rav Chana bar Chinra asked from Rav Huna, Tamashi Yavdil. Okay, and what about the end of Shabbos? If you already ate something before making Havdalah at the end of Shabbos, do you still make Havdalah? Amarle, he said, Ani Omer, I think, Tam Mavdil, that if you tasted food already on Matzah Shabbos, you still make Havdalah, Mavdil. Rav Asi Amar, but Rav Asi says, Tam Eina Mavdil, you've lost out of the mitzvah of Havdalah, you don't make Havdalah anymore. Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba Ikla Lebe Rav Asi, Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba came to the house of Rav Asi, Ishtalevatam Midi, he forgot. He forgot that he hadn't made Havdalah, and he had something to eat. Habalei Kasa, and then they gave him a cup of wine, Lichara to bench, at the end of the meal, Va'avdil, and he made Havdalah in that cup of wine. Amrale Dvitu, his wife says to him, his wife knew his minhag, he says, V'hamarle Avidhachi, but you don't do this. You hold that if you made Havdalah already, you hold that if you already ate something, you don't make Havdalah. Amrale, he says, Shavke, leave him alone. Kerabe Svirle, he holds like his teacher, meaning, I must pass him like Rav. Who Rav Huna is saying is this is in the name of. So it's true at home I don't do this, but if I'm in the house of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav, then I do hold like this. Amar Rav Yosef, Amar Shmuel, says Rav Yosef in the name of Shmuel, Tam Einai Mekadesh, Tam Einai Mavdil. Says Rav Yosef in the name of Shmuel, somebody that is time, somebody that already has tasted food, Einai Mekadesh, doesn't make Kiddush, Tam Einai Mavdil, and he also doesn't make Havdalah. You've lost out on both. The Rabba Amar of Nachman Amar Shmuel, and Rabba says the name of Nachman in the name of Shmuel. Both of them are saying in the name of Shmuel. Tam, that if you tasted food Mekadesh, v'tam Mavdil, then you do make Kiddush and you do make Havdalah. So you have two Maseches here in the name of Shmuel. Turning over to Kuf Zayin, we'll just go a couple lines in to see how we paskin. Amar Rava says Hilchasa. How do we paskin? Tam Mekadesh v'tam Mavdil. We paskin that you still make Kiddush and you still make Havdalah even if you messed up. Meaning you shouldn't, but if you did, you still make Kiddush, you still make Havdalah. Umisha like Kiddush b'erev Shabbos, somebody that didn't make Kiddush on Friday night, make Kiddush v'holech kol hayom kulai ad Matzah Shabbos. You can make Kiddush all the way until Matzah Shabbos, meaning even by Shalosh Shudas. You should say the full 2 brachas of Kiddush. Misha like hivdil b'Matzah Shabbos, and somebody that didn't make Havdalah on Matzah Shabbos, ma'avdil v'holech kol Shabbos kulai. You should make Havdalah the entirety of the week, which we pointed out is until Tuesday. I'll tell you, I once saw this happen in yeshiva. The first din here, it was a 3-day. We're getting into Chodesh Adar now. It was a 3-day Purim Mishulish, and it was Paris Yom Paris Mapam Mekadesh kind of Purim, where on Erev Shabbos, one of the guys got unfortunately roariously drunk, and he passed out before Shabbos started, and he woke up. The next day, he missed Mariv, and he missed Shachris, and he missed dinner, and he missed lunch, and he woke up in time for Mincha and Shalosh Shudas. So he asked one of the Rabbanim in the yeshiva, what should I do? And he said, by Shalosh Shudas, you should make both brachas. You should make the full Kiddush. So he made Kiddush. I don't know if he was meant to anybody else, but he made the full 3 brachas of Kiddush, full 2 brachas of Kiddush, and then made Hamotzi, and then had his Shabbos Shalosh Shudas meal. Okay. So the first member of Rava here is that the halacha is Tam Mekadesh Tam Mavdil. and then you have the whole week, meaning until Tuesday, to make Havdalah. Anybody that hasn't made Havdalah is going to make Havdalah the whole week. A Meimar Pasach Lala Hashmatza the Rava Behai Lishna, but the way that a Meimar taught over the Meimar of Rava was Amar Rava says Hilchas Hatam and Mekadosh Tam Mavdil. He said anybody that hasn't made Kiddush should make Kiddush the whole of Shabbos and Tam Mavdil, and you should make Havdalah. And then he stipulated, somebody that hasn't made Kiddush on Friday night has the whole of Shabbos to make Kiddush. And somebody that hasn't made Havdalah on Shabbos, anybody that has made Havdalah should make Havdalah the entirety of the day, meaning the whole of Sunday, but you lose it after Sunday, and we'll carry on from Amri Le Mar Yunuka, Mar Kashisha. We'll see these two sons of Rav Chisda having the conversation with Rashi tomorrow. And looking forward, please God, everybody should have a beautiful Matzah Shabbos, beautiful week, and Erev, we're up to already now Erev Rish Chodesh Adar, and we should be Zachar to be Marbe B'Simcha, hoping everybody's doing well, and we will see you later.